Welcome to how to enable PubNub's Presence feature to use in your application. Presence enables you to track the online and offline status of users and devices in real time. To be able to do this, PubNub triggers presence events to monitor channel occupancy, when a user has joined or left a channel, typing or mood indicators, current location, and even things such as profile information. If you also want to have PubNub notify your server whenever presence events occur, you can even use presence webhooks on any channel for your keys to capture these events. To set up presence events in webhooks, we'll need to enable presence and customize any settings necessary for your application in the admin portal. To begin, navigate to the admin portal at admin.pubnub.com and log into your PubNub account. Click on the Apps tab on the left-hand side of the portal, select your application, and choose the key set you would like to enable presence for. Scroll down until you reach the presence section, and enable presence by clicking on the slider to turn it on. A pop-up will require that you enter in enable in all caps to be able to turn presence on, as presence will trigger many different events and could generate an uptick in transactions. However, there are a lot of different features and customization you can do to be able to help prevent these transactions from piling up, and you can also be sure to contact our support team in case you have any questions regarding this. Click on the enable button to enable presence, and you're ready to begin using presence in your own application. However, let's take a look at though why you might want to configure any of the feature settings to suit your application needs, such as how we just have mentioned that presence can generate a lot of different transaction costs. You can do things such as customizing presence events when you want them to be triggered for a certain number of users, or for receiving these events on your own server via presence webhooks. Following 5 presence settings are related to presence events: announce max, interval, presence deltas, generate leave on TCP fin or RST, and stream filtering. Let's take a look at the first 3 settings as they are related to each other and need some further explanation. The announce max setting specifies the maximum number of occupants in the announce channel mode before switching to the interval channel mode. The interval setting specifies the number of seconds between each interval event in the interval channel mode. The presence delta setting, if enabled, will have interval events in the interval channel mode to include information about which users have joined, left, or timed out, and this is a list of UUIDs. Let's explain what the announce and interval channel modes actually mean. When presence events are triggered for a channel, there are 2 different modes the channel will be in: announce and interval. The mode is determined by occupancy counts, which is the total actively subscribed clients on that channel. Announce is the default mode, and the presence events, join, leave, timeout, and state change, are all sent to subscribed clients once they're triggered. Once the channel has reached the announced max number of occupancy count, which is located in this setting, the announce max setting, the channel goes into then interval mode. Interval channel mode will then replace sending join, leave, and timeout events with interval events and are sent every few seconds based on the interval setting. You can include more detailed information in the interval events for users if you enable the presence deltas setting. So in our case then, for the default settings for presence, this means that the channel occupancy limit has a maximum of 20 people while it is still in the announced channel mode. Once it has reached over 20 people, in this case it could be 21 people, it will then switch to the interval channel mode and will send out these interval events every 30 seconds based on this setting. If we enable the presence deltas checkbox, then we can also send more detailed information regarding these users, which would just be a list of the UUIDs for the users who have joined, left, or timed out, to be able to provide more information regarding these interval events. The next setting is the generate leave on TCP FIN or RST. If this setting is enabled, PubNub will generate a leave event if the client closes the browser rather than sending the leave event when the user times out. This could be useful to be able to track when users are actually leaving rather than just waiting for them to time out. The last presence event setting is stream filtering. This setting ensures that presence metadata is included in events and published to the presence channels. The subscription stream filter can then be used to ensure that presence events are not filtered out when using filters on a channel. And these filters are used for when you're trying to look for specific data within these presence events. Now, if we scroll down, the last 9 presence settings are presence webhook settings. Remember, presence webhooks are for when you want to be able to capture these events on your own server. While these are not required for basic presence functionality to work in your application, they are necessary if you want to capture these events on your own server. You can have different endpoints for each of the webhook fields, or you can have the same endpoints for each of the fields and then filter these on your own server. We do recommend that you have at least two different endpoints, one for the channel, active/inactive webhook fields, and then another for the rest of the webhook fields. This is because that there are differences in the data payloads received for these different webhooks. So to begin, the active notice channel setting is where you will specify the PubNub channel where active and inactive channel notifications are published. You will need to enter in the actual channel name if you want a specific channel to manage these specific notifications. The channel active webhook setting triggers the HTTPS endpoint when channel occupancy changes from 0 to 1. And then conversely, the channel inactive webhook setting performs the opposite by triggering the HTTPS endpoint whenever channel occupancy changes from 1 to 0. The presence join webhook setting triggers the HTTPS endpoint whenever a user subscribes to a channel. Conversely, the presence leave webhook setting triggers the HTTPS endpoint whenever a user unsubscribes from a channel. The presence timeout webhook setting triggers the HTTPS endpoint whenever a user times out from a channel. This means that on your server, you can capture whenever a user times out on your application. The presence state change webhook setting triggers the HTTPS endpoint whenever presence state changes for a user. You can set custom state for your users on one or more of your channels to track things such as a user's game score, game state, or location in your application. However, keep in mind that this user state is not persisted anywhere and is lost when the user is disconnected. If you do want this data to persist, be sure to cache that data locally whenever that user reconnects, or use PubNub's objects feature to persist that data forever. Check out our website if that sounds like the best option for you. The presence interval webhook setting triggers the HTTPS endpoint for interval events, which we discussed earlier on. Finally, the debounce setting is the amount of time in seconds to wait before allowing implicit joins after an explicit leave. This setting would be useful in case you have an application that has paginated data lists, for example. You wouldn't want to receive an unnecessary amount of presence events, thinking that your user has joined or left, when in reality they're just scrolling through data. Go ahead and click on the Save Changes button to save any changes, and you're done. You're now ready to use presence in your application using PubNub.